pretty incredible. We're gonna shrink ourselves down, way down, smaller than you can even imagine, to explore this tiny, hidden universe that powers, well, everything, all life on Earth. So, let's get started.
Okay, so first, I want you to picture this. What if you weren't just you? What if you were actually a massive, sprawling metropolis made up of trillions, literally trillions, of tiny, independent, bustling cities? I'm talking each one with its own government, its own factories, its own power grid. It sounds like sci-fi, right? Well, that's exactly what a cell is. And today, we're taking the grand tour.
So we're about to step inside this amazing city. But hang on a second. How did we even find out these things existed in the first place? I mean, they're invisible. Well, it's a fantastic story of discovery that didn't start with some grand sweeping theory. Nope. It all began with a simple piece of cork and a really curious mind.
And you know, this whole journey of discovery, it took almost 200 years to piece together. It all kicks off way back in 1665. A guy named Robert Hooke is looking at a thin slice of cork under his microscope, and he sees all these little boxy rooms. He calls them cells, like a monk's cell. But here's the thing. He was just seeing the empty walls. It wasn't until Anton van Leeuwenhoek a few years later that someone actually saw living cells, these tiny little things swimming around in pond water. Pretty wild, huh? Then, you fast forward to the 1830s, and two scientists, Schleiden and Schwann, finally connect all the dots. They're the ones who propose that, hey, maybe all living things, plants and animals, are made up of these cells.
So all of these incredible discoveries, they all start to build up and lead to what we now call cell theory. This is basically the foundation of all modern biology. It's got three main parts. 1, all living things are made of cells. Got it. 2, the cell is the most basic unit of life. Makes sense. But it's the third part, the final piece of the puzzle that really changed everything.
And that final piece comes from Rudolf Virchow, with this powerful Latin phrase, omnis cellula e cellula. It means all cells from cells. Now, this might sound obvious to us today, but back then, this was revolutionary. It completely smashed the old idea of spontaneous generation, this belief that life could just, pop into existence from mud or rotting meat. Virchow proved that's not how it works. Cells don't just appear out of thin air. They have to come from other cells. They divide, passing the torch of life from one generation to the very next.
Okay, so now that we've got the history down, let's grab our microscopic keys, unlock the city gates, and finally step inside. It's time to meet the key departments that keep this whole metropolis running 24/7.
All right, let's meet the crew. First up, you got the nucleus. Think of it as City Hall. It's the command center, holding all the precious DNA blueprints and basically running the whole show. Then you have the ribosomes. These guys are the tireless little factories, just churning out proteins all day long. And those proteins are the city's tools, its bricks, everything. The endoplasmic reticulum, we just call it the ER, that's your highway system, processing stuff and shipping molecules all over the place. And the Golgi apparatus, that's your central post office. It's an expert at modifying, sorting, and packaging everything up to make sure it gets exactly where it needs to go.
But of course, no tour would be complete without visiting the city's most famous department. And I'm pretty sure you know which one I'm talking about. Thanks to a million memes, this little organelle has become a genuine internet celebrity.
And you know what? It deserves all the hype. The mitochondria, yes, the powerhouse of the cell. These are the city's power plants. They're constantly busy generating this molecule called ATP, which is basically the energy currency that pays for everything the cell does, literally everything. Without a steady supply of ATP from the mitochondria, the entire city would just shut down. Game over. Now here's a cool thing. Not all of these cellular cities are built the same way. Plant cells, for example, are like little fortresses. They have this super rigid cell wall that gives them structure and protection. Plus, they have their own solar panels, these things called chloroplasts, that can literally make sugar out of sunlight. Pretty neat, right? Animal cells, on the other hand, are a lot more flexible. They don't have that big wall, and instead of making their own food, they have to import it from the outside.
So you've seen all the different departments, but a city can't just operate in a bunch of separate silos, right? For it to actually work, every part needs to be constantly talking to every other part. They've got to have this vast, complex communication network.
And in a metropolis as huge as your body, cells are constantly talking to each other. They're sending and receiving messages all the time. This whole process is called cell signaling, and it's how your cells coordinate to do literally everything,
from healing a simple cut on your finger to making your heart beat. But how do they actually hear these messages?
Well, they listen using these really specialized proteins. And this right here, this is a G protein-coupled receptor, or GPCR for short, and it's a perfect example. The best way to think about it is like a doorbell on the cell's front door. GPCRs are one of the biggest and most important families of these receptors in our bodies. So when a specific messenger molecule comes along and rings the bell, it sets off this whole chain reaction of signals deep inside the city.
And the whole process is just so elegant. Here's how it works. First, a message gets sent out, maybe it's a hormone or something, then that molecule finds the right house and binds to its specific receptor. It rings the doorbell. That one action relays the signal right through the cell's wall and into the city. And finally, the cell responds. Maybe it starts making a new protein, or changes its shape, or even gets the signal to divide. It's this beautiful, simple, yet incredibly powerful system.
Okay, so we've covered a lot. We've seen how these cells were discovered, how they're built, and how they talk to each other. But here's the big question. Why does any of this tiny microscopic world actually matter to us in our big macroscopic lives?
You've probably heard the saying, no man is an island. Well, the exact same thing can be said for our cells. No cell works alone. They are completely dependent on each other, organizing themselves into tissues, which form organs, which form, well, you. The health of the entire organism, your health, relies on trillions of these tiny cities all working together in perfect harmony.
But what happens when that harmony breaks? What happens when things go wrong? Well, if the mitochondria, those power plants, start to fail, it can lead to these devastating diseases where the body is just starved for energy. If the ribosome factories start making faulty proteins, you can get all sorts of developmental problems. And when that communication network breaks down, the city descends into chaos. And that's exactly what happens in so many types of cancer.
And that is why all of this matters so much. Studying cells isn't just some abstract biology topic. It is the absolute foundation of modern medicine. Every single time we develop a new drug or figure out a new treatment, what we're really trying to do is fix a problem happening inside one of these tiny, intricate cities.
You know, for centuries now, we've been learning how to read the cell's genetic blueprints, but the next great frontier, thanks to incredible technologies like CRISPR, is learning how to write in that language, to go in and fix the typos that cause disease. Think about that. It's a development that won't just change medicine, it's going to challenge our very definition of what it means to be healthy and ultimately what it means to be human.